Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. David Hooper, and today is really special. I am so excited to welcome my guest, Sheila Abiola, and Sheila's journey is really interesting and inspiring. She is known as the Introvert Whisperer, and Sheila has developed a really interesting business as well that we're going to dive into today. So I hope you're ready to learn about all sorts of practical strategies and what introverts can actually go and achieve, because Sheila is going to lead the way for us today. So Sheila, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. And the question I always like to start with, Sheila, relates to being unstoppable. And that was the ambition for the podcast, was to help introverts feel unstoppable so they can go and achieve all these amazing things. So tell me, what does being unstoppable look like or mean to you?
I'd have to say, once I've recharged in my fullest, so whatever that looks like to me, it could have been after a weekend away where I literally little mini digital detox, and when I'm back in my project execution bag, I've got a project I'm working on, it's going like gangbusters, and I'm getting to the end of it, and especially if it's something I haven't announced yet, I'm like, oh my gosh, I kept this quiet, I've smashed all my deadlines, this is great. So that's when I feel my most unstoppable.
I'm so going to ask you about execution and bringing your projects to life, because that is right up my street, and I love hearing about how your process might work and things like that. But before we dive into all of that good stuff, what's your experiences as in living like an introvert or being an introvert? The good, the bad, yeah. What's your experiences?
Well, I think I'll start with the good. I think you can be very analytical, and people may look at you in a way where, oh, this person isn't contributing, well, they don't say much. I'm gathering information. Don't worry. Once I've got to that stage, you're going to regret you ever poked the bear, because literally, I think we're very forensic detail we go into, so that's great. I think the bad can sometimes be we get in our own heads a lot, and that can lead to a lot of imposter syndrome. And it can sometimes you minimize yourself quite a bit in some ways, if you allow that to take hold. I've been passed up for loads of promotions, and actually, you'd be the best person for the job, but like, well, you've just sat there quiet. How does anyone know what you're able to do? Because you're not always in that frame of mind to be around people to speak about yourself. It doesn't always come as naturally to us.
Definitely doesn't always come naturally to us. And how did you get to a point where you could speak up for yourself and take that action? Because I think a lot of people listening, and certainly a lot of the introverts I talk to, are still in that suppression phase, or that they feel suppressed at work or in relationships or all these different places. What was your experience about that when it comes to that transition from being that person to actually doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, so had to have been the last role that I took on. I worked with a local council, and it was purely admin stuff that was in their social care function. And one of the girls they buddied me with, well, I say girls, she was old enough to be my mum. Her behaviour, she should have known better, but just the constant, just nitpicking. She always had to be star of the show, that kind of thing. And I just thought, you're not 18 anymore, Sheila. You can't keep skipping jobs every time. You're not going to get on with everybody. It's just life. So I stayed in that job for 6 months while this person had made my life absolute hell. But then when it came time to delivering a project, I don't think she'd underestimated me massively. And I think I'd underestimated myself, which is why she believed that she could treat me that way. So when it came down to delivering this project, just utter silence. I think it was kind of a thing of, oh, so you've been taking this information in, not only about the project and what we do, but also how we will deliver it. So at that point, I thought, if I can stay here for 6 months, tolerate just being spoken to like absolute rubbish, and still pull this out of the bag, if I do say so myself, I will toot my own horn because it was amazing. And have all that all day, every day, and still deliver for this council. Then maybe it's time I take this into other areas of my life.
Such a powerful statement, and I'm so pleased that you were able to do that, because look what you're doing now, which is so great, so impactful. And it was really interesting reading about your background, because you've worked in a few different industries, haven't you?
Loads. I've been everywhere.
And which has been the one that you remember most fondly?
Believe it or not, waste management, because it sounds crazy, but we throw our rubbish in the bin. We don't think of anything else that goes off to. But the company were really, they were really big on becoming eco-friendly, how things get disposed of correctly, and just the camaraderie of that team, the customer service agents, the people that went out to drum up business, the CEO, all the management staff, just really lovely people. And when you talk about there's no I in team and everybody getting stuck in, it was literally that. I've never had that before. Just all different walks of life, all different age groups. It was such a lovely place to work.
Yeah, and that I can imagine that camaraderie and the banter that was flowing around and all those different things would have made it a really nice place to work.
It was great.
And why you said that you'd worked in a lot of different industries. Why do you think that was? Were you looking for the right thing and couldn't quite find it, or what was the situation there?
Big time. Yeah, it was. I never really, I don't think I have as yet found I don't know what that is. Some
Yeah.
people, they just, from primary school, they know, I don't know, I want to be a fireman, and they actually become a fireman. It's crazy. I never had that. And I would just literally flip from job to job to job. I was never anywhere more than 3 years. Um, and it wasn't always down to necessarily like the culture fit or the people. Sometimes I just got really bored, and there was never anywhere else to go. I didn't Having to be promoted always leaned on going to the pub on a Friday and getting absolutely mullered. That's not my thing. I don't really drink. Um, you know, Talking absolute nonsense to people and passing it off as banter. Those were the kinds of people that got promoted, and that's just not my bag. So once I realised that promotion wouldn't necessarily be on the table without cosplaying as an extrovert, I was just like, time to go. So
It's really interesting that you say that, because or the reason I picked up on that was because I'm very similar in
mm,
that I have, like a lifespan of 2 to 3 years in one place. Then I'm I'm off or getting bored, or I wonder if that's like the introverted creative side, where it's like I've done everything I want to here.
yeah,
What next? What do you think?
it could be. I believe so because a lot of the places I have left is because there's nowhere else to go with this. I am bored to tears on a daily basis. What do I do?
No, absolutely. Yeah. So, at what point in your journey did you think, you know what, I've had a go at working in different industries and working for somebody. Um, I'm gonna think about developing my own stuff.
Hmm. That would have been sort of late 2022, early
Okay.
2023, so really recently. I, Full disclosure, I'm still at my 9 to 5 and I do really enjoy it. But I'm coming to that sort of, the 2 to 3 year shelf life type thing, and I'm like, I want to be in a position within the next 6, 7 months to be able to just go all in on this. So yeah, I would say about coming up for a year ago was when I was like, I think I'm going to start looking at doing
And I
something
think,
like that.
yeah, I think that's amazing. I love that you're in that phase, and I think that combining full-time work and developing other projects around that is really admirable, and it's a challenge as well, balancing time and energy and all the different things introverts need.
Mm.
So what would be your advice to someone who is in their nine to five, hating their life, thinking there must be more out there for me? How did you approach starting to develop a business alongside that? What were some of the things you considered?
Yeah, so I had more of a thought of, well, actually, if in an ideal world, if money was no object, what kind of things would you be doing? That was the main place I approached it from. But it's not all of us that work in the same industry that we would be had we not had this need for food and shelter. So
Those
luckily
things,
for me,
yeah.
luckily for me, I really, really enjoy being of service to people, and that's something that has come across in every job that I've been in. People say, "Oh, you really know this information, or you know how to signpost this person to that." Or so I thought, if I could have something where I'm able to either use my story or something I've been through to support other people and create a community, because I didn't have that necessarily. Um, that's when I started to kind of think, maybe there is something in community building and just getting in rooms, not necessarily physically, but creating some sort of connection with like-minded people. um, I also I have this, I started with this book called Ikigai, which basically throws together all your purposes and things like
Mm,
that. And the idea is, in the middle of that, that's what you should be doing. So
mm.
that was really interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Talk us through that process, because I don't think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, so it's a Japanese concept, and there's quite a few books around that, and I think it literally translates as life's work or life's
Mm,
purpose. So it's like a massive Venn diagram basically. So it's like your personal, what you're called to do, what you enjoy doing, and then as they like interconnect in the middle, everyone has one that they fill out, and then in the middle, because that's where your purpose, as it were, is. So it asks you a bunch of questions, um, and then you have this Venn diagram that you fill out, and that the idea is it's supposed to help you lean towards what it is you should be doing with your life.
and what was yours? What was your answer?
It was basically a community around, like, to stop isolation, as it were. Like, um, I need to find the fourth thing actually, if that makes it sound so basic. But no, it's around isolation, having to kind of just bring people in, take people under your wing, that kind of thing. So that was interesting.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. And did that create the introvert whisperer? Because I love that. I love that phrase.
In some ways, yes. I got talking to someone at a previous job, and we got onto the fact of like introversion and stuff like that. And she turned to me and she said, "You know what? You're the first introvert that I've been adopted by as an introvert. Normally, I get adopted by other extroverts and call them friends." And it just made me laugh. She said, "I knew straight away within 20 minutes of talking to you, I'm going to call you the introvert whisperer." I was like, "Yay! I'm stealing that."
I love that. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's great. And yeah, I excited to get into your business in a second. But something that I read about you, which I really wanted to explore, was you talk about there was a profound moment of loss that reshaped your perspective.
Mm.
What Talk us through that? What happened?
Yeah, so I lost my dad in 2017, and it was expected, but it's still a bit. Nothing will prepare you. You think you'll be ready,
Yeah.
and and as the oldest of so many children, you've got to got to pick up the remaining parent, make sure they're okay, and everyone else is okay. So I had that going on. I was then with all the finances that happen after a parent passes away, it's everything that goes on with that. So I ended up in debt. And then I also had issues with my housing as well off the back of that debt. So it wasn't just one thing. It was just there
Mm.
was just layers and layers of absolute rubbish, and I was just like, really, can I just catch a break? So at that point, I just thought I don't even have the capacity anymore to be around anybody. I did what I had to do from afar, and I stayed in my house. And I mistook that for recharging as an introvert, and it wasn't. I needed to call a spade a spade. It was isolation, because the recharging that I did wasn't of any quality. It was just escapism. There's no other word for it. It wasn't useful in any way. I didn't go on walks. I didn't exercise. I didn't, like I said, I didn't see anybody, and I was regularly going to work with no recollection of how I got there. I'd be at my desk just like, did I walk here? And I'm trying to remember the journey,
Yeah.
and it was just complete disassociation. This went on for about a year, and I wasn't sleeping. It was just a walking zombie. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, it sounds like a horrendous thing to go through, and
Mm,
those things that pile up, you do start to think, why is this happening? Can I catch a break? When's this going to turn around? And I had a similar experience in that I had three bad things happen. In that I was made redundant from a job, which was my real purpose at that time.
mm,
And to deal with that, I did exactly what you did. I didn't leave the house. I just went head first into as much food as I could possibly gorge myself on to try and feel something.
mm-hmm.
Drank far too much. Got diagnosed with depression, and for about 5 months, did exactly what you were talking about. Thought at the time I was like, yeah, I'm just trying to find out what I'm going to do next. I'm recharging, I'm figuring it all out. When
Mm-hmm.
actually, I wasn't. I wasn't having those thoughts. I was just isolating, like you, similar to you, in that I was embarrassed. I didn't want to see anybody. I was this failure. All these sorts of things that were masquerading as, oh, I'm just figuring it all out. It'll all work out.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and what was it that snapped you out of all that then? Was there a moment that you remember where you gave yourself a head shake and thought, I'm going to turn this around?
Yeah. I always tell this story. I can laugh about it now, and I remember explaining it to my mum. She was absolutely wetting herself with laughter, but not at the time, but afterwards. I remember it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I realised I was laying in bed, gin jams on, and I was actually just pretending to be asleep. I was laying there with my eyes closed, and I was breathing in and out. I was like, "Babe, you're not actually asleep. What are you doing? Get up, sit up. You're not getting any quality sleep. You're not tired. You're just like, what's going on?" So I thought, right, I'm sorting this crap out. I can't do this anymore. So I had some old, like the lining paper before you sort your walls out at home.
Sure.
So I had a big sheet of that. I had like put one corner on one side, put a candle in one corner to pin it down, something else on the other side, had my Sharpie out. I was like, all right, put my name in the middle and just all the things I need to do. Right, debt, what's your debts? List them all. Um, you haven't dealt with your dad passing away, so call the GP in the morning. Um, then I was just writing all this stuff down. It was like the ramblings of a mad woman, but it made sense to me because I knew if you put it on paper, it has to happen, right?
Oh,
If
I
you
love
write a
that.
list, it has to happen. So when it got to a decent hour, I called the GP and just said, "This is what's happening. I don't actually know what I need, but help." They were great. They were like, "Fine," gave me an appointment. I called in sick at work, and my appointment wasn't until the afternoon. So I literally took a shower and I slept that whole
Mm,
day, and just slowly started making the phone calls that I needed to make to
wow.
start getting myself debt help, housing help, um, help with my weight, just help with health in general. So yeah, it was a mad morning.
Yeah. I can imagine that. Like you're doing that and just going, yeah, writing and writing and all that sort of stuff. Just splurging it all out.
Had to be done.
And it does. It's that action though, isn't it? Where you were holding yourself in that state and you know, recharging or thought you were recharging, and then it came to the point of taking that massive action and got all the things you needed to. I mean, I love that. I don't have an example. I would show you if I had something here, but I'm big on like writing kind of spider diagrams and
Yeah,
mapping stuff out and all that sort of thing. So I completely appreciate the value of that,
yeah.
and it then that's your plan, isn't it? And you start to execute on that the next day. And what was life like from that moment on then?
It was honestly like within a week, when I say a weight had been lifted, I was no further towards a like an end goal, as it were, but just like the fact that I was making strides toward it being better. So, for example, I got in touch with a debt charity who, at that point, I was paying out something like £1,100 a month in different debts, and I was leaving myself with about 200, which wasn't really doing anything. They got my payments down to like three figures a month, which was way more manageable. Even that, just to be able to have some kind of
Yeah.
disposable income, starting bereavement counselling, and other counselling also helped me as the oldest child actually sit my family down and say, listen, with all due respect, you guys are going to have to start handling your own because
Yeah.
I'm only one person. Like, I'm here if you need a chat, but I cannot internalize everyone's nonsense. Like, it's too much. So, just once I had that conversation, honestly, it was just like a weight had been lifted. Yeah, it just felt so much better.
I think the money concerns are they can be terrifying, can't they? When you have that, you've got X amount in the bank account, this much is coming out, it might bounce back and all that
Mm.
sort of things. What would your advice be for somebody who's in that situation right now and maybe you're in a similar space to what you were back then?
Yeah, I would say to them, don't borrow anymore. um, Also, speak to, can I mention the debt charity?
You did, yeah.
Yeah. So speak to Step Change if you can, or any other debt charity, and have a look at your options because they are there. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. I would say that as well. Um, and I think that's the main thing. Yeah, just get help, and don't borrow anymore.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I think it's some really, really good advice. And the other thing that you mentioned around kind of counseling is another topic I think that you mentioned again, you don't have to be embarrassed by these things.
No.
And I think counseling and therapy, I think people are still like, oh, I don't want to be labeled as a certain way, or, I don't need counseling. I'll deal with this myself.
Yeah.
How did you find counselling firstly? What was your experiences?
I was absolutely terrified of going because, like you say, it's a very British thing to be like, oh, I didn't have counselling and I turned out all right. It's like, did you though? You
Yeah.
did. So it's just like, what? Um, so yeah, I was terrified, but also there's that layer of culturally, like
Mm.
you could never say to like, so my dad's Nigerian, you can never say to a Nigerian parent like, oh, you know, you need counselling or you
Mm.
need. And then my mum, it was the same on her side, so she's half English, half West Indian. They didn't do counselling growing up, you know. So for me, I felt like not I was betraying my family, but I just felt, oh, do I really need it? Or
Mm.
so I thought, okay, I'll go along, see what it's about, and yeah, I was lucky. I lucked out with my counsellor. They were great.
And what was that process like going? Was kind of once a week for an hour, or what was the actual practicalities of it?
Yeah, so I'd go for hour sessions twice a week. I will say though, I was able to self fund
Mm.
after a while. By the time I decided to go, like between me deciding this is what I needed and between my first session was about 6 months. So in that 6 months, I'd already got my debt management plan in place. So I got counselling that was quite heavily subsidised from a local initiative. So
Sure.
it would work out £25 an hour, but I could only afford to go twice a week. So that's literally where the bulk of my income went was counselling, but I needed it.
Yeah. And similar to the first question about the money mindset thing, what would you say to those people who know they need counseling but are holding back because of the stigma around it?
Um, I think you have to find a counsellor that works for you. The amount of people that go on like the initial consultation and then they don't really gel with their counsellor, and then also there's a lot of counselling styles.
Mm.
So just because one counsellor tries one with you and you don't really like it, it doesn't mean that the
Yeah.
next person won't have a different method. So please stick at it until you
Yeah.
find the counsellor for you.
Really great advice. And I would say that as well. And the other thing I would say is when you listen to other podcasts, the some of the well, the majority of CEOs, directors in films, millionaires, billionaires,
Mm,
are all like, oh yeah, I go to therapy and counseling 3 times a week. I've got a marriage counselor, I've got a business counselor, I've got a mental health advocate, and it's like these crazily successful people are doing it. You can do it as well,
mhm.
because I do still think there's stigma around it, and anything we can do to bring that down, I'm all for.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that really nicely brings us on to the thing that I wanted to pick up at the very, very start was your execution and delivering on stuff. Now, again, that picture of you in your bedroom mapping out all these different things, I can visualize you doing that. So, talk me through that then when it comes to you executing.
Mhm.
What does that look like? Because I think a lot of people struggle bringing projects, through to the finish line and beyond. They get stuck in that development idea phase. So yeah, what does execution look like to you?
Yeah, so the first thing I have to do is I look at it from my understanding and what it is I think I need to do. So I put it down as Sheila, if you like. And then I kind of zoom out a little bit and say, if a friend came to you with this mess of a spider chart, what would you tell them to do at each of these points?
Mm.
Then I look at, okay, what these points that you've now given your friend, what resources do you have to throw at it? Can you identify the resources and where would you get them from? How would you make this happen? So that's my process.
Yeah. And when it came to developing your business then, what was the process of that? Because I think when introverts have these exciting big ideas. We think quite big and then we get stuck there maybe, and we don't want to narrow it down because we want to do everything and get into that place of, okay, I can deliver on this thing now. So yeah, what was that process like? Firstly, when you thought, you know what, I'm going to start a business. What was that first business?
So the first business I started was it was actually Amazon FBA.
Okay.
So yeah, just going to wholesalers, finding products, and yeah, sending them into the fulfillment center, getting money back, job done. That I just knew because this was on the tail end of me sorting my life out after the whole, yeah, me deciding to sort my life out. So I thought I need to get some money back in, and
Yeah.
how can I? What's something low cost? And someone mentioned Amazon FBA on Instagram, so I was trying to find someone who had a decent course that wasn't extortionate. Found them, and literally I just went all in because at that point it was, well, it's this or be in the same place in 6 months. So
Mm.
in 6 months, you'll either have a lesson or you will have success. Which one is it? So at that point, because my back was like to the wall, basically, I had to
Yeah.
do something. That was more out of my hand was forced. That's
Yeah.
how I executed that one, which is most of the things in my life, unfortunately.
And you mentioned something really interesting there as well around perspective. Your back's against the wall, but it's either going to be successful or I'm going to learn from this. How did you get to that point? Because again, I think so many people struggle with, oh, I can't do that. What if I fail? How did you get to that perspective where you're like, you know what, if it doesn't work, I'll still have learned X, Y, and Z, and I'll have another go in a different direction. How did you get to that point?
I think it was after my dad passing away. I was just like, because he was very much a doer. Think about it
Mm.
after. If it flops, yeah, and if it doesn't, I've got a success on my hands. So I thought even that business I started around Amazon, it was within within about 18 months of him passing away. I started it and I named it after him. And I said, you know what? If I'm going to carry this forward, then I need to also make sure that a lot of how he lived his life is within this business. And one of them was literally just keep throwing things at the wall and see what sticks. Whatever lands on the floor lands on the floor. So yeah, I kind of got that from my dad.
Yeah, fabulous. And after the Amazon business, what was next?
What did I do after that? Oh my god. Yeah, it was literally the wellness reboot, which I'm kind of putting together now. Um, so that was born out of the whole isolation and everything I experienced after the fact. I
Yeah.
think I wasn't even in the right headspace to create anything like that
Mm.
during the time and immediately after. So yeah, the next thing was the wellness reboot and sort of around introversion, isolation, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. And did you have any self doubt when you did start to go down the coaching route when you were building the wellness reboot? And how did you deal with that?
I did, yeah, because I just thought, well, who are you? No one knows who you are. Like, what do you have to say to people? And then I got speaking to a friend, and she was like, but you must understand, like, all of us on this planet, no one is going to tell our stories like us.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that actually you think that about you because you're in your body. But if you're ever in any doubt about, what you think you can provide anybody or not, as the case may be, talk to your friends because they will
Mm.
tell you every time you're really good at this or we like this or we. So yeah, luckily I had a good support network after me.
You're so right. And I still, but I battle with that daily, to be honest. And something that one of my big things is, or that's been casually moved down my to-do list, I'll say, because I'm busy, is doing what you're doing right now, as in being like a guest expert on a podcast. So something that the next step in what I want to do is do more of that and go and be the guest on other people's podcasts and give my opinion and have great conversations from that different perspective. And I have that daily where I've said, what have I got to say here? Why would anyone want to listen to me? And I think it's you're absolutely right. Everybody's got their story and their journey and a perspective on things, and making sure that you embrace yourself and your qualities is so important. What would be your advice to somebody who is suffering from that self-doubt and just maybe needs to develop that support network?
This is going to sound really cruel, but there are people way less qualified than you doing exactly what you're doing or more, simply because they believe in themselves, they believe in what they have to offer, and they believe that people outside of whatever field they're in will believe that they have something to give. So, like I say, you're either going to just jump in. You're either going to have a lesson, or it's going to work. That's literally, that is the worst case scenario, is that you end up with a lesson. I mean, who doesn't have a lesson?
Exactly. Every day is a learning day. Absolutely. I think it's a great message, and I'm definitely going to reflect on that as well. And taking it back to the wellness reboot then, because I love this concept. For those people who might not have come across the wellness reboot, just give us an overview of what it is you do and how you do it.
Yeah, so the idea is basically born out of, like I said, this whole period of isolation that I went through. But what I realised is that it's not just about one particular thing or one way that we look at health. I wanted it to more be like preventative measures that we would put in. So things like actually checking in with your friends, or it's not always about the things that you eat necessarily. It's the things that you watch. It's the way that you think about yourself. It's the way that we treat others. So at the minute, I'm in the process of revamping that whole website. But when it is up and running again, it will just literally be, the idea is it's just a central hub for anybody that's feeling a bit new to start to build some better practices in their life daily as a preventative. This is what we're going to do day to day, rather than leaving everything and then the only time that you seek help is when you're at crisis point.
So inspiring and so good and so needed as well. What do you think are the main things, the people who come and engage with the wellness reboot, what are some of the challenges that they're facing?
Imposter syndrome is a huge one. I see a lot of online addiction, not necessarily gaming and things like that, but I think there's a lot of comparison. And people speak about young girls, but I'm seeing more and more men. And I have to keep reminding people that what you see on social media is the good bits. So how are you comparing the day you spent lounging on the sofa because you needed it to some 6'4" bloke with a tan and a six pack? It's just that's not, he don't look like that all the time, sweetheart. So yeah, those are the main things: imposter syndrome and just comparison.
I think imposter syndrome is the one of the biggest things that introverts struggle with. I think it is so prevalent in so many of the conversations I have. And is there been a time where you've struggled with imposter syndrome?
I think uni days when I was at university, oh my gosh, big time. That was not fun. I would regularly just sit there and think, am I supposed to be here? There's, oh, look at so and so, this is their second degree, I'm only on my first. What's it? Yeah, it wasn't great. But uni days was I didn't know it was called that then, but looking back at it now and what I know, uni days is where I first felt it. Yeah.
Interesting. And why do you think that was? What was it about that environment that set you on edge?
Um, I so we had a lot of the professors that we had there that were teaching. I mean, these were just such amazingly accomplished people, and then to have them sit down with what I would say are the likes of us. I mean, we're their students; they don't care, it's their job. But I would just people would instantly just get what they're saying, and I'd just be sat there glazed over, like, what are you even saying? And then it would take someone from a completely different walk of life who had understood what the heck they said, broke it down for me, and I'm like, oh, is that it? They're like, yeah, they just use extra words. This is what they mean. I'm like, oh, so yeah.
It's such a good point. And I think that type of situations presented in professional environments as well. So, similar to you, Sheila, I find it very hard to instantly understand concepts and frameworks when they're
Yeah.
just talked to me. I'm like, right, I'm nodding, but I've no idea what you're talking about. And it, I have to go away and, you know, read up on it and write it out a few times
Yeah.
and that type of thing to really grasp what on earth was going on. And I think that's the same in the professional world where
Mm,
introverts are, well, it's like if you're in a team meeting, for example, and you've been given all this information and the team leader says, right, who's got thoughts on it? And we introverts are like, well, I'm still digesting the first line of what you're saying.
yeah.
You know, how am I meant to deal with that? And is that something you still deal with today, or have you found a mechanism to, understand information quicker? Or yeah, what's the current situation?
I still struggle with that. I have to literally either record things or just take notes in my own handwriting because if you're going to give me a handout, that's great, but I'm going to have to be there annotating the crap out of it because I will
Yeah,
not get it into my head otherwise.
yeah, definitely. And I think introverts say the world's not set up for introverts particularly well, especially not in the professional world, because extroverts, they've got their hands up, they're diving on top of these types of things, and we need a couple of seconds to think about it.
Mm,
And I think that, yeah, makes us as introverts feel quite bad, even though I think you mentioned this at the start, we could be more analytical and more detailed and comprehensive if you just just give us a little bit more time, and we'll be able to deliver at a whole different level for you. But I don't think that's how the world's set up at the moment.
no, it doesn't feel like it. It really doesn't.
Yeah. So that I digress because let's get back to the wellness reboot then, because yeah, I think it's so interesting with what you're doing. How do you maintain your motivation and your resilience building this business alongside that full-time job? How do you do it?
Question. I think my biggest why is just not wanting to go back to the place that I was at. Like previously. I have there's a photo during that time. There's a photo of me and my little sister, and from anyone that doesn't know us or doesn't know me, would just be like, oh, she's has a picture of her little sister on her birthday. But I look back at it now and just the upset in my face, like yeah, I'm smiling, but it's actually quite sad. I look back at it sometimes, I'm like, I don't even know that girl.
Wow.
So that's my motivation. That's literally my why is just to never go back to that place again.
I that gave me chills, like good chills hearing that, because I love that, the drive that those experiences can give you. And you mentioned your why there. Just in case people haven't come across what that means, what does your why mean?
So that's like your purpose for the reason you do what you do. And people just go, well, isn't that just an aim or objective? No, aims or objectives, you can feel a bit like about even on your crappiest day, someone could ask you your aim or objective and you'd be like, oh, sod it. But your why needs to be strong enough that if something was to happen with your business or whatever it was at 2 or 3 in the morning, you go, I need to get up and handle this
Yeah.
particular thing. So your why should be strong enough that whatever you're doing around it, when you think about if everything was to work out for that purpose, like its highest good, if that was to be 10 out of 10 all the time, that should make you jump. Like it should make you visit. Like your heart should be like, oh my gosh, if this is the best case scenario for this, that should make you go, oh my gosh, that's your why.
I love that so much. I really do, because yeah, it gets you going, doesn't it? And it is those moments where you don't want to get up, or you don't want to do something that scares you, and you have that thought, wow, my why, and then it forces you to do it. And my one of my main why is, it's quite a personal one, but it's always been, when I met with my wife and we started dating, and got engaged. Something I said to her was that I was going to give her like a new a new life, like this better life, this great life.
Oh, I love
And and I regret it since, because many early mornings I've wanted to lie in, or when I've had these scary meetings I didn't want to go to. I always go, what was my why again? Oh, I told my wife I was gonna get this great life for her. I'm gonna have to do this scary thing.
I love that.
Oh
Oh,
man, but I seriously though, I do. It's so powerful, and it really does help narrow the perspective, and
mm.
that instant gratification of, I just want to watch Netflix tonight, compared to, do you know what I mean?
hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that it's yeah, so good. Um, so what? This is a bit of an off the cuff question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. As an introvert, what do you think one lesson that you've learned from your journey through all the different roles, and the experiences, and now the business? What do you think the key lesson is, that you've learned, that you think everyone should learn?
I think for me, I don't know if it's going to be the same across the board, but actually, you hyper independence is it's not you're not going to get to where you need to be by yourself. And I mean that in every possible way, not just friends and family, but there may be people that are in the field that you want to be in, and you're feeling like, I'm just this little person. If I approach them to say, I don't know, can I shadow you for a day? Or do you have any
Yeah,
tips or anything? Just go and start putting the feelers out there for whatever it is that you want to do. So, personally, if it's friends and family you need to lean on, do that. If it's professionals or you don't have a good relationship with your friends and family, but there's professionals that are in the field that you want to go into, go and approach them.
yeah, I think it's so good, and especially if you were looking to start a business as well. Um, I heard an interesting saying that was, something like contacts equal contracts, which I thought was quite good, because again, that's something that I've not wanted to do, in terms of networking and work hard to build relationships. I am, I'm pretty socially anxious, to be fair, and something that inspired me though this year was your message, when you got in touch on LinkedIn and said, one of your, I think one of your New Year's resolutions was to reach out more, or something like that. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do that as well. And I have, and it's been great. So I think that, yeah, I think it's a really good message. And how have you found networking? Maybe online or maybe in person. How do you approach that?
I online was I said, you know what, if I can conquer online, then I will start doing in person. I haven't started
Mm,
in person yet, but I've got stuff in the pipeline. So online was like the lesser of two evils. So once the message is sent, it's just whatever. So I just said I'm going to send out a bunch, see how that goes. I mean, it is way less scary than I thought it was going to be. Like,
yeah,
honestly, you've just got to rip off the band-aid. I mean, 99.9% of people are lovely. Like,
yeah.
honestly. And that little 0.01% that are a-holes, that's fine. We don't need a-holes in life, so don't go with it.
And something I've found when it comes to networking, sometimes online, is that it can be quite overwhelming. And, there's so many people on LinkedIn, for example, or if you're going to do LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and, the list, it's like, oh my goodness, where do I start? So do you have a process? Do you group people or set yourself a target of 5 people a day? Or, how do you approach networking online?
So I have thank God for the scheduling part of LinkedIn because oh my gosh, trying to stay on top of those. So a lot of the stuff that I put out on one platform, I also schedule on another. So then anybody that likes or interacts with the post, so I'll set everything to, I do my posting in 2 week batches. So then that leaves me time to whatever post has gone up in the evening. I take 4 hours. So I do 2 on one platform, 2 on another. And I spend my time going through whoever's liked or whoever's commented or any
Yeah.
new. So LinkedIn, for example, followers, I DM all of them. I'm such a sad person. I want to know what made them follow,
Yeah.
and then yeah, let's do the same on Instagram.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's something that I can imagine makes it a little bit more manageable.
So much more. I think for me it was the content's the biggest part. Going in back afterwards and engaging. I mean, you can just do that throughout. Well, I've got capacity to do that throughout the day. So yeah, once the content's taken care of,
Yeah,
the follow up's fine for me.
yeah, fabulous. And what would be your message to any introverts who are sitting listening to this, who maybe are in a similar situation to you, or have in your previous experiences where they want to take major action, but they don't really know where to start, or they are struggling from imposter syndrome or self doubt, and just there's something not quite there for them. What would be your message to those introverts to try and get them going and finishing the year strong?
Yes, I would kind of just revisit something I was saying earlier, which was that think of your best case scenario for whatever it is that you want to do. If it completely worked out and 2, 3 years after that, of it completely working out, where would you be? And start from there. And anybody that can help you with that, start reaching out to them, start following, I don't know, some of their content, or find people that have done what you have done, because then you know it can be done.
That last point's a great one because, the fastest way to be successful is to do what a successful person has done.
Yeah.
And I think we let our egos get in the way sometimes. I want to be original. I want to be original. Like, do you, or just, so I think it's a great, great point. And what about your rest of 2024? What's coming in your world for the rest of the year?
So I am launching my community. I'd love to say quite soon, but I'm such a perfectionist. It's just there's still so much left to do. But hopefully by summer, my community will be ready. So that will just be a space for. I'm aiming it at introverts, but if organisations want to have a bit more information around introversion, what it is, how it presents, and how they can help the introverts in their companies and teams, I'm all for that. And I'd love to go and look at some public speaking opportunities as well towards the end of the year, because it'll be getting cold, and yeah, I just want to I can sit in rooms and just have a nice chat with people. So yeah, community, public speaking, and more content on.
I love that. I love those goals. And what would you speak on? Do you have a topic in mind?
Usually for me, it's imposter syndrome and
Uh,
introversion. That's like my bag, because I suffered from it so
yeah,
badly there's not an area of my life that imposter syndrome didn't touch after university. Like, I can
yeah,
imagine all the opportunities I've missed.
absolutely. Yeah, I'd agree, completely. But look at you now, which is amazing. And last question, well, how can people find you, connect with you, and work with you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn as Sheila Abiola. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as at the Wellness Reboot, and that's it. Yeah, that's all my handles. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Sheila, thank you so much for your time. It has been so enjoyable. I've loved hearing about your background and your stories, and so many people are going to have been impacted by your episode for sure.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, and thank you so much for listening, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed the episode with Sheila Abiola. And make sure you check out all of her platforms. All of Sheila's links will be in the show notes as well. So make sure you jump on all of the things that she's doing. And thank you so much for tuning in and to listening. And remember, your introversion is not a limitation, but a superpower waiting to be unleashed. Until next time, stay unstoppable.